Ever since the Industrial Revolution, oil has been produced in vast quantities within the United States, making the nation responsible for 85% of crude oil production by 1880. By 1900, oil was utilized in everyday products, becoming the dominant source of energy. The United States, spoiled by the excesses of oil until 1970, has already become too dependent on the resource. Over the next 40 years, both the decreasing of the United States production of oil and the increasing of the United States consumption of oil were turning the previously common resource into a prized product.
1973 dramatized U.S. dependence on foreign oil. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries imposed its boycott and within a year raised prices more than 300%.
The nation's dependence on the now rare oil makes it even more susceptible to a plethora of issues, including foreign affairs, economic damage, and environmental crises. Why are we so dependent on such a cursed commodity? Are these ends justified by the benefits of oil? The United States does consume more oil than it can produce, and the limited resource is depleting as we speak. We gathered experts from around San Gabriel to explore these issues and their solutions in The Curse of Black Gold. Did you know that the United States has 2% of the world's oil in its reserves? The United States also uses 25% of the oil consumed globally. If you can't do the math, that's a 23% difference. Why and how are we using so much oil? Well, oil is utilized in a variety of products. Just look at all these products that use oil. And that's a lot of products that rely on one resource. The systems that produce food for a nation are becoming increasingly dependent on oil as well, in the form of fertilizers, pesticides, and, well, fuel for tractors, harvest machines, and shipments. That would be fine, provided that the production of these products didn't rely on such a scarce, environmentally hazardous resource. Let's look at the oil reserves in Louisiana, which is the state that produces the most oil in the United States. Louisiana, like any other oil producer, had to find a way to get rid of all the toxic waste involved in the oil refining process. There are three ways that one can get rid of waste: disposing of it inland, dumping it in the ocean, or burning it. Obviously, this inevitably leads to some deadly consequences. Just ask leading oil expert Henry Osborne.
The result is, environmental degradation. Could be in the ocean, could be in the stream, river, lake, killing of fish, killing of plant life. The effects on the air quality culminate themselves in higher cancer rates, asthma, all sorts of human health problems, not to mention problems that animals and wildlife, plants and so on have.
Pollution due to the United States, let alone the world's, dependency on oil proved to be a significant impact on the world's environment. In addition to the various environmental issues with oil, it's time to face the facts.
America is addicted to oil.
Our deep ties with oil leaves us in a precarious situation in which oil has become the dominant force that controls many aspects of the existing infrastructure. At the current rate of consumption, the Earth will run out of viable oil sources before the end of the century. As our oil reserves deplete, the current infrastructure as we see today will undeniably self-destruct as its cornerstone crumbles. All the goods mentioned previously that we use in our everyday lives would disappear. This disgusting dependency on oil also leaves us incredibly vulnerable to shortages or crises as evident in the past. As our dependence on the cursed commodity increases, our susceptibility to the changes in the production and supply increases exponentially. And as our production levels decrease and imports grow, we are essentially giving the fate of our economy and society into foreign hands. As a result, great measures have been taken by our own government to secure the oil interests of companies. Such instances of this oil-oriented shift in diplomatic relations would be the support of Middle Eastern dictators, like removing the Prime Minister of Iran who nationalized oil fields, only to install a US-friendly dictator.
I think in large part our whole economy, our whole economic base is at least in part built atop a need for oil. And so if that is threatened in any way, shape, or form, then our access to oil, then our economic base is threatened, and so it requires military intervention. I think it drives tremendous amount of spending on military in that part of the world, the Middle East.
On top of foreign affairs, economic detriment, and environmental destruction, continued usage and reliance on oil is costly and potentially deadly. To stave off the dangers of oil dependence, there are many alternate sources of energy that can eliminate our dependency on the accursed oil. Although there are few alternatives that can take upon the admittedly versatile oil, a combination of existing technologies and the conservation of energy is the most viable solution to reducing the impact of oil dependency. Let's start off with alternate sources of energy. Wind power is relatively easy to install, but it's not universally supportable. Wind farms provide high-paid jobs, and up to 20% of energy can come from wind alone. That's a lot. A generous installation of solar panels is another viable alternative. Deserts are a suitable location for solar panels, and of course, solar panels are installable upon rooftops. Like other nations, the United States can implement a system in which excess energy obtained from one's own solar panels can be sold to other households, which may help generate income or reduce the energy bill. The conservation of energy is another mandatory solution to mitigate from the dependency of oil. Naturally, saving energy equates to saving oil. More energy means less oil. Aside from the obvious turn off your lights and unplug appliances not in use, what other things can save more energy or are more energy efficient? Well, did you know that if Americans used plug-in hybrids, petroleum use can be reduced by up to 80%? Public transportation is also another option that can be used to ease the strain on gas. Many public transportation vehicles already utilize natural gases. Conserving energy is a simple and powerful way we can alleviate stress on oil usage and, in the long run, shrink the overall American addiction to the faulty fuel. Better yet, a more potent alternative for oil exists which can run on our existing infrastructure: biodiesel. What is biodiesel?
So biodiesel, it refers to vegetable, oil, or animal-based diesel fuel consisting of long-chain alkyl esters. Biodiesel is typically made by chemically reacting lipids with an alcohol producing a fatty acid ester. And the fatty acid ester is what you burn in your engine.
The diesel engine, originally developed by Rudolf Diesel in 1893, initially ran off of peanut oil. Unlike wind, solar, and other renewable resources, biodiesel requires no additional startup costs. That is, standard diesel engines can run on biodiesel today without any modifications. So why isn't biodiesel gaining widespread popularity in the United States? One reason for this may be the common misconception of diesel cars being slow and smoky. However, this is far from true. Emissions, ratings, and fuel economy are even better in diesel cars than gasoline models. In addition, biodiesel does not contribute to global warming since it emits back the carbon dioxide that the source plants have absorbed in the first place. Biodiesel has been widely popular in countries like Germany, where lower taxes on diesel make it cheaper than gasoline. In the United States, federal excise taxes on gasoline is only 18.4 cents per gallon, but taxes on diesel fuel reach a high of 24.4 cents per gallon. Big machinery and equipment rely on the power of strong diesel engines, which electric engines simply cannot replace without high costs to our existing infrastructure. Biodiesel can easily be made from waste vegetable oil, animal fats, and algae grown from wastewater. Every wastewater treatment plant can support the growing of algae.
You can actually get the algae to produce the oil that you want. You can kind of program a genome of algae to produce oil, and that's a byproduct of their metabolism is the oil.
Algae has a quick growth rate, meaning that even in small spaces, enough fuel can be produced for the entire country.
One advantage to using algae is algae can be grown in any type of water. It doesn't have to be fresh water, so it can be grown on top of dirty water or contaminated water. And it doesn't require any space like for agriculture.
Furthermore, biodiesel can be used to produce all of the products that oil currently produces, significantly reducing our dependence on foreign oil. America has been subdued by the curse of black gold for too long, but there is hope. The main reason we have not switched off of oil is that it is too deeply rooted into our society. It is also too cheap to make investing in these alternative energies viable, at least for the time being. But soon we will begin to run out of oil, and Congress will begin to be pressured by the failing infrastructure in foreign nations. If we take action now and begin the transition to alternative sources of energy, we can stave off and avoid the potential harm oil will cause. So what is the first step?
Call your representatives. Encourage them to back alternative energy sources. It's time to get off the oil. I thought this was like on foreign policy.
How much do you need the restroom?
I don't need to use the restroom anymore.